Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle Desrochers and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday night segment of The Outer Realm. We're broadcasting live in the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 from the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM from New Orleans. We are fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee who have been a part of our journey since day one. So thank you, Folgers. It just wouldn't be the same without you. Also, big thank you to Justice Snicker, a.k.a. Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, who's an award-winning composer of Halloween horror and sci-fi, dark wave electronic music. We appreciate his contribution of his time, his voice, and his music for the intro that you just heard. All of his music can be found on all of your favorite music streaming platforms. Also, big thank you to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind the banners and logos here at the show. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram. Also specializes in the horror genre, but does amazing commission pieces. So again, we are really pleased to announce that we are a proud sponsor of the upcoming event, Contact and Disclosure Symposium 2024, which will be taking place April the 20th in the Off-World Bar in Toronto. And this, of course, goes from 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. A lot of good name people who are going to be there. We'll start putting things up as it comes our way, but you're only looking at a couple of days, technically 4. So get yourselves ready, go get your tickets and check them out. Also, for the second year in a row, also happy to be sponsoring the Halifax Paranormal Symposium, which is going to be October the 12th, 2024 at the Halifax Tower Hotel and Conference Center. It will be another day event from 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. So, guys, I'm really pleased about tonight's show because you know how I'm a bit of a harpy about certain things I want to talk about. And we've talked about bringing forward more information about a little bit more cryptids and mysteries and UFO associations. And I had this amazing lady sort of kind of like drop on my lap. And I'm thinking synchronicity. I'm all over that. And she's just brilliant. And she's written this phenomenal book. I'll put this up as soon as we get her on, called Winged Aliens, a Theory That Winged Cryptid Creatures Are Aliens and or Interdimensional Beings. I love that. So Margie Kay is a trained psychic and remote viewing trainer. She's a paranormal investigator with over 40 years of experience. She is clairsentient, clairaudient, clairvoyant, and is a nationally acclaimed remote viewer. She's a MUFON Star Team investigator and is the Assistant State Director for Missouri MUFON. Kay is a president of a forensic investigation company, and I'm going to say this, Unex Media, love it, publishing in Kansas City, Missouri. She's a licensed private investigator, Reiki Master Certified Sound Healer, and serves as a director for the Oz Interdimensional Communication Institute. She investigates cryptids, haunted locations, portals, UFOs, anything unexplained. See, I love her. She's like a kindred spirit, does everything I absolutely dig. So without further ado, guys, Miss Margie Kay. Hello.
Hi, Michelle.
How are you?
Good.
Good.
I love your studio background.
Oh, thank you. This is home. The whole house is like this. So
it's pretty awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm an old soul, so everything around me has to be old as well. Because I'm old, so I guess it all blends in nicely. But I'm really glad that you were able to join me tonight. You've written so many incredible books, and it was hard to pick one to start with. And again, we've had people who write in and ask for certain things, and I'm all about this guy right here. But this would be fantastic to start with, and I just can't wait to delve into it. So I mean, before we're going to do anything, I like to start off with humble beginnings. So give us a little bit of background about yourself other than what I read. Did you start with, paranormal experience or UFO experience? What brought you into the field?
Yeah, I started out having paranormal experiences as a child. I was very psychic, and we knew by the time I was age 2 that I was seeing things that nobody else was around me.
Right.
And but when I was 11, I got the shock of my life when my stepfather, grandfather appeared to me at the foot of my bed, but only his head was showing, was just an apparition of a head. He was talking, but I couldn't hear any sound coming out. And I had never seen him before, so I didn't know what he looked like. After the screaming stopped, my father came into the bedroom and he asked me what I saw, and I told him. And so he went and got a photo album and had me look at it, and I pointed out who it was. And so that was my first direct contact with someone who had passed over, and
Wow.
my
Yeah,
curiosity.
I'd be screaming as well, I have to say.
Yeah,
Just a floating head, like you hear about those stories, just kind of
yeah.
usually not in a good way. So thanks for that, Grandpa. You know,
Now, you would think that he could have figured out some easier way to contact, but I have been in contact with him since, and he's
right.
given me some information about things that I had no way of knowing, and then I would tell the rest of the family, and they'd say, "Yeah, that's right." So
See, that's always
that
nice. Like it
you know
sounds to me like you grew up in the same sort of home I did, because as you're telling your story, that's exactly what my mother did with me. She showed me photographs, and you seems like to have a supportive family that nurtured your abilities, because sometimes it goes the other way and you have these little children who feel like they have nowhere to turn when they start talking about imaginary friends or seeing people. They're being told, well, you're silly, don't say things like that.
yeah.
But so you're very fortunate.
That happens, but with me, it didn't. Even though my parents didn't understand what I was experiencing, they didn't disbelieve it, and so they didn't encourage it or discourage it. So they were supportive in that way, and
Right.
eventually they started. I mean, my mother bought me a book by Edgar Cayce once and handed it to me, and she says,
Perfect.
"Here, so you can understand what you're experiencing." And yeah,
Right.
that helped a lot because then I didn't feel so alone in
Right.
this.
Right. Well, I mean, Edgar Casey's a great way to start.
Yeah.
One of the first books that I started with as well. So I, made it nice and easy. So then
Mhm.
you basically get into UFOs.
Yeah, I had some minor experiences when I was young, seeing things in the sky that I couldn't explain. But when I was 17 years old, we were driving. Actually, I was driving, and my mother was in the passenger seat. My brother and sister were in the back seat, and we were driving to Texas for
Right.
vacation, actually to Mexico. As we drove through Oklahoma, something very strange happened.
Right.
Somebody in the car, I don't know who, said, "Hey, what is that outside the window?" And we see this about 600-foot or 1,000-foot long silver object that looked like a cigar shape. It had no wings or tail, and it's just pacing along with us as we drove down the highway. So I slowed down, and it slowed down too, and then I sped up, and it sped up, and it just kept pace with us. Well, that was in the afternoon while the sun was out, but the next thing we knew, we were pulling up to a motel, and it was dark, and we had no idea what had happened for about 3 hours of time.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, we were later I would find out because I didn't know anything about it at the time, but that was
Right.
probably an abduction experience where we were all taken
Wow.
and then put back. Yeah, so that was my first introduction to UFOs,
Wow.
and then, of course, I have to know all about them, and, you
Right.
just go down the rabbit hole and you can't get out.
Right. Oh my goodness. Like, do you feel it was your first experience, or do you feel maybe you've had them before and you
Oh, no.
just don't recall them?
I recalled under hypnosis,
Oh,
a
okay.
lot more experiences starting when I was about 12 months old or younger.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's
Yeah.
early. Yes, I'm a little bit leery about hypnosis because I was one of those children who, like, I know now as a researcher that it's been going on through like the lineage, like my ancestry. And there's this little kid who was fascinated with the stars and seemed to have blocked out a lot until adulthood again. So hence why I'm asking if it was something that that's happened to you before. Hypnosis is one of those things that, once you start, it's really hard. You can't undo it. So you just have to be really prepared.
No. You do have to be ready for anything because in most cases, I would say the experiences are not horrible.
Right.
Sometimes they're very pleasant.
Yes.
And it's in my opinion that most of the extraterrestrials are here to help us. And when they do medical things, it's probably testing or enhancing or fixing something. And so I don't think people need to be as terribly afraid of that or afraid of looking at it through hypnosis or regression.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the part of it because when I started having, when things started, I guess I just made the decision to be like, okay, because things were happening and I'm like, I'm just going to do this. And I think it really is about becoming comfortable in your own skin with it and being prepared, because it is a little bit invasive when they're coming into, I always say, coming into the boudoir where you're supposed to be feeling very safe and secure. I'd rather it happen to me on a road, on the road someplace in the car. It wouldn't be so bad. But, it's your safe place, right? So
yeah. And then don't do what I did and ask for them to help you with a problem. And then you wake up and they're standing at the foot of your bed and you scream and throw the covers over your head and then realize how stupid you were because you asked them to come.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Like not doing it. Nope, not doing it.
Yeah. That was a little freaky. There were two grays standing at the foot of my bed, but they were working on my feet. I'd asked for help because I'd had trouble with my feet hurting so bad that even my doctors could not figure out what the problem was.
Wow.
And I finally just said one night, I just meditated. I said, if there are any benevolent beings nearby that can help with my feet, please come in and do it. And I fell asleep. And the next thing I knew, I felt this really bad pinch, like a needle going into my bone in my calf. And that's what woke me up. And I looked and I saw them and screamed. But I could still feel their presence there. They didn't go anywhere.
Right.
That was my level of consciousness that had lowered. And so therefore I could not see them anymore.
Right.
I figured that out later too.
It's a frequency thing, isn't it? Like people don't realize that your frequencies really do have to jive if you want a really great experience.
Exactly. And it is all about consciousness with all of these, what you would call paranormal experiences, but contact with interdimensional beings, people who have crossed over, extraterrestrials.
Yes.
It's all about your level of consciousness and awareness.
Right. I completely agree. And it's a really difficult lesson to adhere to because I'll tell you, being in the paranormal field and doing years and years of television and, you say 10 answers to every question and they always take the absolute worst one. It's a demon. Great. Thank you for that. So now the whole world thinks I run around screaming demon constantly. And really it's the furthest thing from my mind. I'm one of those, it's psychokinesis. It's an alien. It's something else. But then my producer goes, it's dimensional bleed through. Okay, shut up. Now it's not even funny anymore. Because but we have fun with it.
They're thinking about ratings. So they need some trigger words.
For sure. That one will do it, seems to, but so let's talk about this book of yours. I know because I've perused your website and you really do document a lot of the sightings. I think people don't realize, the type of beings that we share space with. And again, being interdimensional. And of course, if you're a remote viewer, you get to see all kinds of these amazing things, but unfortunately for common folk who is either doesn't want to learn or just hasn't gotten there yet, you could be like literally within a space full of beings that would probably frighten the average person.
Yes, and that happens to me quite often when I'm doing readings for people.
Oh,
I will see all kinds of beings standing around the person.
right.
You know, you don't just have one guide. There's a lot going on, and there's usually ETs involved and people from past lives who are not reincarnating, but they're staying with you for
Right.
protection. And then, of course, family. There's the gamut. Yeah,
Right.
and there's a room full of people.
Right, right. Do you ever come across interdimensional humanoids, like other than, well, I mean, I think everything in a form is an extraterrestrial of sorts, but let's say something a little scarier.
Well, now I've run into shadow people, and they're very difficult, very strange. People
They
really
are.
don't understand what they are.
Mm-mm.
They're kind of scary,
Mm-hmm.
and I've
They're
even seen them.
sneaky.
Yeah, they are. And I've seen them even during the day outside. I've seen shadow people, 3D, all black.
Wow.
That's a weird one. I would rather not deal with that because I'm not sure what that is.
Yes. Yeah. Well, some people believe they're time travelers as a theory, and other people just believe like they're very malevolent as well.
Yeah,
So
and probably from another dimension would be my guess.
I would go along with that.
Yeah.
I would. I've had people send me photos of shadow people. You can clearly see them. It's just amazing that they're quick. So the fact that you can capture one to me has always been interesting. I know we had a haunted house, and we had a guest come in and say they saw a white shadow person. I had never heard of that. They
No.
completely could see the silhouette of this three-dimensional white being, not a being of light, just like a shadow, but like a grayish white.
That's a new one for me.
Me
I
too.
have not heard that.
Nope, they described it perfectly. They were family friends, so I had no reason to think they were embellishing it. They've asked if anybody else had ever seen them, and we were just like, no, we've never heard of this. We've never seen them ourselves or this individual. They figured it looked like a female. It's like, okay.
I have heard of something else really strange from a couple of people who have confided in me, and they call them the blue beans. And in fact, both of these people called them that, even though they don't know each other.
Right.
And they come out of a TV set.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, that'd be weird.
Can you imagine in the middle of the night?
No.
Your television is off.
Yes.
All of a sudden, your TV comes on by itself, and these blue entities walk out of it and are standing at the foot of your bed, and they're just blue light. That's what they are.
So, what do you make of those? Like, have you researched them? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there is no research. I mean,
there's nothing. Yeah.
I've never heard of, and I don't know if anyone else has heard of it. So I remote viewed it in both cases. And it seems that they use the television as a means of creating enough energy to come in from another dimension and to come into this dimension. And in both cases, the witnesses both said they had telepathic communication, and the beings said, "You're ready for us now." And so, to me, that meant that that person had raised their level of consciousness and their vibration to a certain point where they could have communication with these very high energy beings.
Right. That's interesting to me. You know what it reminds me of a little bit, Margie, is when you're doing paranormal investigating and you do a reverse loop with a video camera, and then you can catch, imaging. They just seem to be able to come through, which to me is fascinating. I mean, I filmed a TV show one time. It was like Entertainment Tonight, and in Canada. And they captured something coming out of this big screen TV that wasn't even plugged in. And it walked through, it stopped, and it turned around, and it just looked at them. It was like, it was like a Halloween special. But on an average, I don't really focus around the television, but now I'd be a little bit concerned. Dolly says it's quantum AI. How far back did these experiences go?
How far back?
Yeah.
Well, 1950s for the
Oh gosh, that's
first one.
pre-AI, at least so
Yeah.
we would think. Wow.
Oh yeah, and the other one, I think she had her experience in 1999.
Right. Still though,
Yeah.
pre-AI as we know
Oh,
it today
definitely.
though. But I suppose it doesn't mean it did not exist. Oh, here we go.
It could have been a hologram.
Right. Yeah.
It's something completely unexplained at this
Right.
point.
It's
And
it's
yeah, we
completely
need to do more research.
Oh yes. Yes. Makes I mean, yeah, I don't know. To me, whenever you come up with a question mark, it's quite exciting because it just means that you get to keep delving into it. You just don't write it off, so easily. She
Mhm.
says ex-military. They have been messing with back engineered AI since the 50s. Yeah. So very, very possibly. I don't
Okay, well, I
I
think
mean, anything's possible. So but
well, when I remote viewed it, I got the distinct impression in both cases that they were benevolent beings that were very high energy.
right.
I didn't
Right.
feel anything dark or anything military or
Right.
government
Right.
about it.
Right. I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. It reminds me of a story that we had a guest tell us about blue avians,
Mhm.
where he was told a story. Two people, buddies, went hiking in the mountains, and they must have gone through a portal and ran into blue avians. And the friends stayed. They said, "Would you like to stay with us?" He stayed. And the one guy said, "No, I've got to go back. I have unfinished business. I'll come back." He tried to come back about a week later. He could never find it. It's just
Wow.
not meant to have the experience or to find them again. So who knows? I mean, right? Who knows? I
Yeah.
love that. These incredible stories. And sometimes they really are just a fly by night thing, and you may never, Margie, encounter this again.
No, no, the woman that I spoke with first that had this experience in the 50s said that she'd never told anyone about it. She found me, she decided to tell somebody before it was too late to tell
Right.
anyone,
Right.
and she never saw them again.
Wow.
It's a
Wow.
one-off.
See? So let's get on to these flying cryptids or humanoids. And I mean, there's so many stories. It's something that I've always found to be a curiosity, like many people, but it's always been very fascinating to me. Mostly the flying humanoids. You see these witches on broomsticks going across, and you're just, what the hell did I just see?
Yeah. Yeah, the Brujas in Mexico. Yeah. Why are they only in Mexico and they're not here?
Oh, there was one in Canada, like about an hour
Oh,
away. Yeah. And I'm just like, that is just too close for comfort. At the time, I lived by there and saw that on one of these popular shows and like, oh, this was in this part, Milton, Ontario. And
yeah.
I was like, this is too close for comfort. you know. But
Yeah.
yes, I know. So you've set all these pictures. Just guide me as to which one you want me to show when the time comes. Where would you like to start with this book? Because you've got all of these stories, and I like the thought about them coming in through maybe portals or stargates, vortexes. It would make sense in some cases.
Yeah, the thing is with all of these different types of winged cryptids, and for that matter, all cryptids,
Right.
there's never a body. Now, a couple people say yes, but there's no proof.
Right.
Footprints that they go along in the snow and then they disappear.
Yes.
Where did that being go? There was obviously something
Yes.
there to make the footprints.
Right.
Where did it go?
Right.
People seen a pterodactyl flying by, and then it just goes into nothingness that looks
Mhm.
like it's going through a doorway, but there's nothing that comes out the other side.
Right.
So, portals. It has to be portals. They
Agree.
have to be interdimensional.
Yes.
That's my opinion. So whether they're alien, which I mean, just thinking about it, they're aliens.
Right.
Are they from another planet? I don't know, but they're from another place.
Right.
Maybe the same space as us, but another dimension.
Right.
And then part of it, especially with the pterodactyl types, I think there may be something with time slips going on, where
Mhm.
because
Yes.
there's just been so many sightings of these things.
Right.
What is going on with that? Why they don't find a nest? They don't find a family of them, and they certainly don't find the pterodactyls themselves.
No.
It has to be interdimensional.
Right. I would agree. I mean, let's just look at the Loch Ness monster. Just that's a no-brainer for me because they have tested these waters. They have done sonar. They have tested the waters just
Yeah.
to see if they can find any sort of, microorganism, anything that could lead them to something, feces, anything. And they don't feel that there's something that big there. They don't feel that there's anything that could sustain something that big, which sort of means you agree with your theory. Maybe it's coming in and out of a portal because it doesn't have full access to get to the ocean to come in and out. It's a real narrow passage, I mean, I've been
And
to
very
Scotland.
deep.
I've been to, it's just, there's no way.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what if we're talking about time slips there too? And this is a prehistoric creature, like some people have proposed, and it's just there for a fleeting amount of time, and then it goes back.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the same with Bigfoot. How many people have
Yeah.
said they followed and all they see is the footprints stop. There's no viable place that it could go. They look up in the trees, they look everywhere. So unless these things are completely able to project to the individual what they want them to see or how they see them, I can't see any other real explanation. And some people believe that, a lot of these beings can do just that because they're quantumly very, very advanced. Don't let Bigfoot fool you. Apparently he's as smart as a whip. So
yeah, well, that's a whole other story. I've got lots of stories about Bigfoot and my encounters with them.
Very nice.
So just suffice it to say, they're extremely intelligent.
Right, right. And do you feel some people report getting really, nauseous around them or very anxious around them because they're able to really mess with your mind,
Well, they can use infrasound.
Okay, perfect.
And that will just really throw you off balance, make you feel dizzy, sick, nauseous, and make you want to go away. And that's really why they use it, because they want you to go away.
Right.
But they're especially aggressive with infrasound with men for some reason.
Interesting.
I don't hear too many tales of women getting hit with it.
Right.
Maybe they
Right.
just don't feel that women are as much of a threat.
Right. I can see that. I can see that. If you're hunted on a regular basis.
Especially, if they're carrying a firearm,
Sure.
that's going to be threatening.
Sure. Absolutely. Okay, let's talk flying humanoids.
Okay.
There's some of your story. I mean, I don't know. Mothman doesn't necessarily fall under that, does he?
Oh, yes, he does.
He does. Okay.
It's a flying humanoid.
Yeah, I guess it would be.
Right? It's a humanoid with wings.
Right.
And most definitely is. I'll just talk about one particular case in Kansas City.
Right.
In 2011, I started getting a lot of reports of giant birds, gigantic,
Right.
and pterodactyls and Mothman. All at
Okay.
once, just everything happening at the same time. And
Right.
before that, nothing. So I did some research and I found a few things before that, few reports,
Right.
but not very
Right.
many. So
Right.
one particular person, his name is Tony Dane, had several sightings of the same, what he believes is the same one single Mothman.
Right.
And it would appear always at night, well, except once, it was during the day.
Right.
And he would be in a car with somebody else in many of these cases, and the other person couldn't see it. It
Wow.
flew across
Wow.
a highway twice in front of him,
Mhm.
just very clear so he could see it, and the other person didn't say a word, so he didn't say anything. But one particular time, he was driving on 291 highway just north of the Missouri River and
Mhm.
coming up on a bridge. And as he approached the bridge, here comes this flying humanoid from the right side of his vehicle, started right towards him in a threatening manner. He
Hmm.
wasn't afraid of the vehicle at all. He slowed the vehicle down to avoid hitting it, and it
Wow.
kind of hovered right in front of his car. It had glowing red eyes, no neck, humanoid body, and bat-like wings. And he said the wings were flapping like it was having a difficult time staying aloft.
Mm,
And then
interesting.
it took off to the right, and disappeared into the woods. So there were 2 or 3 occasions where he encountered this thing next to that particular bridge.
Mhm.
And since the Mothman has been associated with bridges in the past,
Yes.
several, as a matter of fact,
Mhm.
he thinks that it's living under the bridge. So I remote viewed it, and I feel the presence of it underneath that bridge, which is very strange.
That is very strange.
And then people want to know, why Kansas City? Why do we have all these reports in Kansas City? Well, so in my research, I found that Chicago has had a number of flying humanoid sightings or Mothman sightings. And then, of
Wow.
course, at Point Pleasant, where it all kind of
Yes.
started in the 60s.
Right.
Well, if you look at a map, you see some big rivers.
Mhm.
And if you go to the Ohio River, there's been 2 sightings there. Come on
Mhm.
down to Chicago, like 150 sightings in Chicago,
Really?
and then
That's
follow.
substantial.
Oh, yeah, yeah, and then follow the rivers down to the Mississippi. We've got several in the St. Louis area, and then going across the state of Missouri, the Missouri River, follow
Mhm.
that straight to Kansas City and Independence, where I am.
Mhm.
There's a number of sightings along the way, and then Kansas City, I guess probably by now there are about 60 sightings here.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this isn't such an isolated event. I mean, do you think this is also worldwide? Because there have been it's so hard to tell now, I think, because of technology, if what you're seeing is real, is it AI, is it photoshopped? But I remember when the nuclear plant in Japan went off, there
Mhm.
were sightings of crafts, which you hear about UFOs coming,
Yeah,
with things like that. But there was also a sighting of a winged humanoid in the area.
I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
They've also been seen around, at the Twin Towers before that, several months before that. Several people saw it. At several disasters. Now we haven't had any disasters in Kansas City and nothing with this particular bridge
right,
as of yet, but that's been
right.
since 2011, so,
So, do you think
nothing.
it's premonition, or do you think because, like, of course, with the Point Pleasant, oh no, was he warning people? Was he that omen, that harbinger of doom, or did he cause it? Like, what, is the jury out on that, or what are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I think the jury is still out on that. There are
Wow.
so many different opinions,
Wow. Yes.
and the sightings are still continuing to this day in that area.
Really?
Yeah, and I've taken reports from New Mexico,
Mm,
Utah,
mhm,
California, Texas.
right.
There's a movie that just came out, called The Pajaro Incident, where a gigantic creature, winged creature, actually attacked some FBI agents and a sheriff,
Wow.
and stuff that had been going on since the 60s there and is still going on today.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
is this common, like, in your research? Like, are they that aggressive, or do they keep to themselves? Because that's a bit freaky.
Usually there no, in none of the cases that I've worked on have they been aggressive,
Mm,
but in one case, with this, Tony Dane I mentioned earlier, there was
mm,
another incident where he was, an Uber driver, and he was driving a Kansas City Chiefs player from the airport to his home in Kansas,
mhm,
and going south on the highway. These highways around here are busy day and night all the time, very, very
right,
busy.
right.
they noticed that there were no cars. And in fact, the passenger said to him, "This is weird. There are no cars. Where are the cars?" And so Tony felt the presence of the Mothman. And this is another thing that happens. It's happened to me too.
Right.
Because of my investigations, now the presence, I know when it's around.
Right.
And it interacted with me and also another investigator as well.
Right.
And so he said he knew something was up. He stopped and he let this guy off, and then he went right back to the airport. Well, he had just washed his car prior to leaving, right? He gets to the airport and he's going to fill his car up with gas, and he notices that on the hood only is this brown substance all over it. Not on the windows, not on the hood, but only on the roof of the car. Okay.
Right.
He comes to me the next day, the next early morning.
Right.
And by that time, it was about 38 degrees. So it was not freezing anymore.
Right.
Yet the substance was crystallized. It was still crystallized. I took pictures. I took a sample, sent it into the MUFON lab. The lab report comes back, brown bat.
What?
So I look up brown bat and I see it does not hang around suburban areas. It stays in the woods. It's not going to be on a highway. And so, and of course, our lab doesn't have a Mothman to test against.
No.
Right? We don't have that DNA from anyone yet.
Right.
So we don't know what other DNA might be in there. But the fact that it's part bat and it had bat-like wings, that's strange.
That is really strange. That is really interesting. That I mean, how close do you have to be to see something like that? I think too close for comfort in my book. But
that was close. Yeah.
Oh my
and
gosh.
The fact that, there's bat feces only on the roof of the car.
Right.
Only on the roof. And
right.
all of my equipment that I used, compass, EMF, everything went crazy next to that car and on top of the car.
So that's
when
really
the car
high
was
levels
off.
of energy. Right. Right.
And it did that. It continued to do that for 6 days.
So, and did anything happen in that area? Like, was this a precursor to an event, or so it was just there? Maybe it's a matter of thinking like a bat. Where do bats like to stay? Usually, caverns, caves,
and apparently the brown bat would be in trees.
There we go. Yes.
But there was an awful lot of feces for a bat. It was.
Would not want to clean that up.
Oh,
saying.
No.
Right. Like, oh my gosh. Okay. So why all of a sudden do you think all these sightings are happening? I'll take it to this question. Then I'm going to get somebody on your page. Is there a real big reason why these portals are opening up now? Does anyone know why they're active now, or are they just other than these creatures just showing up, or these beings, as I like to say?
Well, I think that the whole answer is in portals opening. Something has caused a lot of portals to become active that have been there before, and then new portals to show up. And I'm seeing this a lot in my UFO investigations.
Okay.
In fact, I'm working on 3 right now that have known portals, where you have time anomalies, where things change shape inside the portal, or I've stuck my hand in one and my hand just went completely distorted on film.
Right. That's crazy.
Okay, so what has changed really, really big that would be worldwide, and that is the CERN collider.
Oh yeah. That's enough to do it right there. That they powered that back up, didn't they?
There are things that open them, and there are ways that people can create a portal. I think we probably have that technology.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But
we can open up portals. It's not hard for us personally to open up portals. We are, in fact, portals, technically speaking. Things can come
Yep.
through us if your frequencies can jive, right?
Absolutely correct.
And then we're getting to
Yes.
natural vortexes and vortices that are literally everywhere, stargates that are literally everywhere. The ancients knew where to build their monuments and their structures, you know.
Mhm.
So, but it sounds like with Mothman and maybe other beings that are similar, it sounds like maybe some of them have just been here, you know, for a really long time.
Well, there is some evidence, ancient evidence, you know, drawings on caves, petroglyphs.
Right.
There is evidence of, in fact, we have some in Missouri, in Washington State Park in Missouri. But they're all over. And of course, you see Thunderbirds all over.
Yes.
Canada, North America.
Yes.
And at times, the times that these were, well, some of these ancient totem poles have them too. But the cave drawings are ancient and they're all over. So what being called a Thunderbird that has the same basic shape that's being drawn everywhere, how did all of these cultures, all of these different Native American tribes from all over see the same thing? And so the Thunderbird is another big question mark for me that I would like an answer to. And I saw one myself.
Wow.
And in fact, that's one of the pictures that I sent you, was that giant bird in the trees. I was outside one evening, and this is a strange story. Earlier in the day, I was at my office working, and I left, and my daughter, who works for me, and her son, who works for me, were upstairs in their office. I headed home, and a few minutes later, she calls me in a panic. She said she had gone out to her car, and she heard footsteps behind her chasing her. And she heard what sounded like a wing flap.
Right.
So she didn't turn around to look, because the only thing she could think of was getting in the car and closing the door, because she thought it might have been a person. So, and this was at night. So she got in the car at dusk, and all of a sudden in the back of the car was something black, and then something came all the way around all the windows. She drives a Dodge Charger. Came around all the windows and all the way around the front windshield and completely covered it. And it looked like wings to her.
See, that's
huge, just huge. And then, oddly, she said it just dissipated and just kind of went away. It didn't fly away. It just disappeared.
It just disappeared. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. That's interesting.
So she calls and tells me this story, and I'm like, wow, okay. So a few hours later, I go outside to sit in my hot tub on the deck. And something told me, my spidey sense was up, to look through my backyard, because something was there. And there was this gigantic bird sitting in the tree with its wings spread out. And I mean, bigger
like than a condor, bigger, like.
No, 30 feet is that's a Thunderbird.
That's a Thunderbird.
Condor is 10 feet.
Okay. I had to just clarify, because there's a lot of people that are, who have absolutely no idea.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to put this up. I don't know if this is same idea.
No, that's not it. This is another time when we saw a gigantic bird flying overhead, and my grandson took that photo.
Okay.
This is a drawing that I sent you.
Okay, I'm just trying to get.
It's like a gray pencil drawing.
Okay, one second.
I can't draw anything, so I have a friend of mine do my drawings for me.
No, that's okay. I'm just going to go in here, and there's so many of them. Just let me know if I hit on the right one. If I don't,
there we go.
Okay, good.
That's it. Yeah, she drew a moon in the background and everything. So
beautiful. Just
an idea. It wasn't as pretty as that. And there weren't very many leaves on the trees.
Right.
But here is this clear outline of a body and wings.
That's a big wingspan.
Yeah. And so here's the weird part about it. I heard a noise to my right. So I look and I see a tree. I'm not sure if I sent you that one. That had, and it had 3 little ones, like 2 feet tall.
Yeah, I don't have that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there were 3 in different places in this tree, 2 feet tall, but their wings looked more bat-like. They had long beaks. They looked a little bit different than this, whatever this was, Thunderbird.
Yeah.
And so I
like
looked at them.
Yeah.
And then I look back at the big one, and the big one's gone. There was no flapping of wings. There was no sound. Where did that thing go?
So unless you have a portal sitting practically right over your tree in your backyard. Okay.
I have one. Yes.
Right. Okay. So there you go. Because I was going to say, where all of a sudden did it just go? Like, could they just be doing this with a mere thought? Because that's also a thing.
Maybe they can just appear and disappear at will.
Yes.
Maybe they can be anywhere they want at any time.
Right.
And the fact that I have a portal at my house probably helps. And the fact that we have a gigantic portal only 6 blocks away from us that was created by a building with it's a spiral temple. It's in a spiral shape, Okay, so this is a vortex.
All bets are off there. Sure.
Yeah.
Right. So that. Yeah. Okay. Because, I mean, you do hear, stories of Thunderbirds have been going, you've been hearing them from the indigenous people and ancient cultures. Here, in the West for centuries, stories of these things picking up small children.
And they still believe they exist. I know several Native Americans, Cherokee, and they say, oh, yes, this is a real being.
Right.
It exists. There is no question to them.
Right. Lady Spider Witch says, can you please explain again about the portal? I guess the one you were just mentioning, the spiral.
The spiral temple. Okay. If you look up online, Community of Christ Church Spiral Temple or RLDS Temple in Independence, you will see a picture of a very strange structure. And I don't think I sent you a picture of this.
I don't have
it. It is all made out of concrete and steel, and it is in a spiral shape, and it's actually hiding an antenna inside of it, a really, really long antenna.
Wow.
And the story is that is for ET communication.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why? Nothing surprises me. Why does none of this surprise?
No, it shouldn't.
No.
People have been doing these things for years. They've been creating buildings at certain spots where they know there are ley line crossings, and the Masons are extremely adept at this. I keep finding structures that were built by the Masons, and they just have to be perfectly aligned north, south, east,
and they are. Yeah, they're perfect.
Yeah, and their ley lines. I get my dowsing rods out and find the ley lines. It's they do it purposefully.
Of course.
Absolutely. And this building is one of those.
Yeah.
They did that on purpose. It's not a normal thing at all. You don't see it anywhere.
Right. No,
but it's in Independence.
Freemasons are brilliant when they know all the mathematics. It's all sacred geometry. They know how to put it together, and it goes up flawlessly. You look at going back to buildings that go back even 100 years where you didn't have the equipment and the lasers that you have today to be able to line these things up perfect. And yet they knew, and they did.
They did. Yeah.
Right? So it's always fascinating.
Also, if you go to Google Earth and look at this building from the top, it looks like a Fibonacci spiral. Yeah. They knew their mathematics.
They definitely knew their mathematics.
Yeah.
Amelia would love to have been here. She was under the weather because that goes back into her family lines, going back going all the way back to Pisa and the architectures and everything. She would just be right into all of this.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
I don't want to get too far without, this is one of your listeners. So would a silk cover over the TV prevent, I guess, these blue beings from coming in? I wanted to address that before we move too far.
Okay. No, I don't know the answer to that. Let me just ask here real quick. No, the answer is no. Wouldn't
No.
stop him.
Okay. Sounds to me like we should be testing. So, okay. She said the whole city of Washington, D.C.
Yeah,
would be like that
definitely
as well.
Masonic layout. Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly. Does anyone know what it was that you said that was causing the portal she did not understand? Yeah, what was something? No,
Okay,
CERN.
the CERN.
That's right.
Now, there's always been portals, and you build
Yes.
buildings on certain spots and in certain ways, and you can create portals. I happen to have one at my house and above my house. And that's been there at least since 1986, since we noticed it. It was probably always there.
Right.
But there's a theory that the CERN collider is being used to open portals to other dimensions. And they
Wow.
know what they're doing. So the scientists are doing this purposely. If you get online and look, you'll find all kinds of information about this. The whole thing is bizarre.
Right.
Even at the beginning, when they opened the CERN, when they had a big ceremony, these people all dressed in these weird outfits, and it's some type of satanic ritual, and it's
Yes,
built
I
on
read
some
that.
land where the
Yeah.
devil's supposed to be. I'm like, you can't make this stuff up.
No.
You know, we're
No.
talking about scientists here. What are they doing with the occult? No, they must have a reason.
The ancient mystery schools. You go back
Yeah.
into the time of esoteric knowledge, and there's stuff that a lot of the elite people of the world have been made privy to because they have access to very old documents, especially old Gnostic texts. And Vatican, just go down to the Vatican. They've
Oh.
got all the cool stuff, and they're
Yeah.
involved in literally everything. But I could see where they would have all of this information. Even Tesla had, like 10 out of 11 boxes disappear. It's like, or one disappear.
Oh, they
out
grabbed
of so
that
many.
stuff up right away. Yeah.
See, that's what I mean. Like a lot of this is really ancient technology as well. But have you ever looked in the FBI vault online?
Yes.
Yeah, right. And how they basically stated that Nikola Tesla was Venusian, and that he was brought. This is right in there that
Yeah.
he was brought
Yeah.
to the Tesla family to care for him, and every now and then there would be Venusian people that would come down and check on him. But Venusians were said to be a technological society.
Yes, and a very advanced society, and
Right.
extremely high vibration.
Right.
And I don't think you want to go down this rabbit hole, but
Oh, I'm always down for any rabbit hole, Margie.
do you know the Valiant Thor story?
I've heard about that. Sorry. Go
Okay.
ahead.
So Valiant Thor's from Venus. He visited the Pentagon from 1957 to 1960 for 3
Right.
years. He made friends with a guy. He actually called him in. His name is Dr. Frank Stranges.
Right.
Dr. Stranges wrote a book about him called Stranger at the Pentagon, and then he wrote several books after that.
Right. See, I've heard of him. I didn't hear all the tidbits of the story.
Yeah. Well, Thor and his crew have been
Right.
here for a long time. And they were
Right.
even here before that, but they generally didn't tell anybody that at the time.
Right.
So 1985, Thor appears to me after at my massage therapist's house.
Of all places, eh? Nice.
Okay, yeah, it's a
Mhm.
bizarre story.
Yes.
My massage therapist, we're getting ready to leave, putting our coats on. All of a sudden he says, not in his voice, would you like to try a light experiment? So I instantly knew that was not his voice. And I
Right.
said, yes, I would. So he had me look at a green light and then a red light and back and forth for a couple minutes. Then he says, now what do you see? So I look up to look at him and I see a skeleton standing there, and that's it.
Hmm.
And then this voice comes from my right, and there's a head on the wall, and it's the floating head again.
I was going to say,
don't
what
know.
is it with you and just floating heads?
I don't know, but this is totally different. He had a helmet on. It came down to a point in the middle. And he says, I am Thor, and now you have X-ray vision. We're going to be working together. I'll be in touch. And then he's gone. So I'm looking around at everybody. I said, my brother, my kids, and I said, did you guys see that and hear that? And they said, see what? They didn't see or hear anything.
Of course.
So anyway, long story short, I've been in touch with Thor since 1985, but I didn't even know who he really was. I didn't know he was Valiant Thor, the Commander Valiant Thor.
Yes, I've heard of him. Yes,
until a few years ago.
Wow. See, a lot of people they're on the fence with him too. So it's nice that you can offer your own story up with this. Because
and I kind of have proof because he gave me X-ray vision and remote viewing. Right. And I could see inside a human body or inside of machinery, and tell you where there are problems or things that need to be done. And so that's what I do when I do conferences. And if that's the subject, I'll talk about Thor, and then I'll do readings right there on the spot. And just have anybody come up and I'll take a look at them.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah. That's again, it's a nice validation, So. Okay, this is so much. There's so much to cover. I'm just like, where do you want to go? So, with some of these flying beings, there are often we're getting into quantum stuff and UFO stuff. I truly believe the paranormal, everything, cryptids, everything comes full circle. I believe everything is interconnected. Personally, I think experiencers will have had paranormal experiences, vice versa. But a lot of UFOs are spotted, or orbs of light are spotted around some of these beings.
Yeah, you can't separate these subjects because eventually all investigators come to the conclusion that they're interconnected.
Yes.
And there's one particular case I can tell you about that really cements that idea.
Okay.
And that is, there's a woman in Sugar Creek. Her name's Valerie. And we've been working on her case for a long, long time. One day she calls me and she says, "You're not going to believe what I just saw." She said, "I looked up." She was outside working in her garden. And she looked up. She saw a really, really big hawk, what she thought was a hawk. So she thought that was kind of unusual. And she's just watching it. And all of a sudden it transforms into a silver saucer-shaped UFO.
Okay, that's
and
crazy.
Is gone in a split second. Flies off. Now, since she told me that, then I've run into these other stories of birds morphing into something else, or like, for instance, a plane that a person thought was just a regular plane. All of a sudden, its two wings went down, halfway in the middle of the wings, curved down, morphed into a bird and flew off. Now, where is this coming from?
Right.
Are they UFOs and they're cloaking as something else?
Right.
I had an incident myself just a few months ago. I was getting ready to drive to work and driving down this one side street, and I see a hawk, but it's just flying and flying and flying, but it's not going anywhere.
That sounds like a mega glitch in the Matrix or something.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's the first thing I thought. Was glitch in the Matrix.
Right.
And it's just flying and flying and flying, and it's not going anywhere. So I stopped the car, and I'm getting my phone to get a picture when all of a sudden, poof, it's gone. Just gone. Where did it go?
Right.
Interdimensional. So I think there's a lot of interdimensional things going on. UFOs, ETs, cryptids, they're connected. That's why I called the book Winged Aliens.
Right.
Because there's just so much bizarreness to this and so much evidence that that these things are interdimensional.
There's just too many to that you just, I mean, I get, we have deep like cavern systems and tunnel systems, and I mean, we have caves that have their own ecosystem. We know there are definitely things underground. The Hopi have spoken about their, the ant people. They've been underground. Like the story I told you about the blue avians. Portals are everywhere, and where you least expect them. Right? I mean, they could be right inside, of a cavern or a cave. They can be in the water, in the ocean, in the lake. I mean, things are just popping in and out. So there has to be something to it because, again, I'll go to Loch Ness. Do you know they spent 50, 60 years with cameras on that thing.
Mhm.
And once in a blue moon, you'll get something. They're like, "Oh, was that it?" Apparently, they've just had some big sighting, and
I
they've
heard.
gotten photographs, and apparently, this is, they're like, "Yep, now we know for sure this is it." And I'm just like, I never know anymore with the technology we have, and now especially with AI and photos, and you don't know.
Well, we do have better cameras now that are catching a lot more of the light spectrum.
Yes,
So perhaps we'll get some more good stuff in all the paranormal departments.
well, Bigfoot seems to be not as camera shy anymore. I mean, there's a lot of stuff with him
Yeah.
surfacing at pretty much everywhere. Do you think, Margie, that maybe it's just a collective consciousness thing as well, that we are creating this amazing energy and these beings are coming forward now and feel like this it's okay to do so? Because that could
Yeah.
create portals. That energy can be quite inviting as well because we're raising our vibrations.
100%, I believe that. The last 3 years in 2021, we all got a big boost in
Yes.
vibration. We
Yes.
skipped. Usually it's a very slow, gradual process, but no, very quickly. And this was done according to Thor and my other guide contacts.
Right.
This was done purposely because the timeline has been sped up. So what that means is that the ETs are going to make themselves known all over the world at the same time. This is
Right.
what Doris told me.
Okay.
And this is it's coming soon, but there are certain people who had a high enough level of vibration that they were almost there, but they needed to have this extra boost that came
Right.
in. So they sent a boost of energy to everybody.
Right.
And so I think you're 100% correct that the collective consciousness, the vibration level has been raised.
Mhm.
And so now we're able to see and interact with these interdimensional beings much easier because we're actually moving into fifth dimension.
Right. Right.
And, the song,
Yes. No,
fifth
for
dimension,
sure.
it's
Yeah.
happening,
Yes.
right?
Right.
We're in it now.
Right.
And so
Now
these
we're
beings that
existing
are
with third dimensional or density beings still too.
true, that's true.
And that makes it really difficult because they like to mess with your vibration.
They try.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why
Yeah.
it's important to keep protection up all the time.
Yes. Because I look at the events, without just blabbering it all off. I'm looking at the events that are happening around the world right now. And there's so much hardship. Yet you hear people say, this is the best time to be alive. And there are people, because I don't get on social media a whole lot. I kind of peek in there once in a while, I like to read, if I'm having like my morning latte or something. And I really see people they just seem to be full of angst. Yet you have so many people believe this is the best time for us to be alive because all of these amazing things are going to be happening. I don't know.
Yeah.
When we
It
have we've got war at the door, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
that's a bit of a frightening situation.
I tell you what, I am trying not to get involved in it.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
let the dark side do what they wanna do. And, to me, it's all set up, it's all fake,
I agree. Well,
and I
yeah,
don't want
I
any
agree
part
a
of
lot
it.
of it. Yep.
So I'm staying focused on
Yep.
working on myself and helping other people.
Yes. Don't fall into the distractions.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You know what? I know there's a lot happening. I know even with my own experiences that they've been becoming more powerful. Downloads and abilities keep changing, and frequencies are very something that I hear this with a lot of people. We're hearing more frequencies. We're tuning in. I can listen to a song and pick up just the frequency of the
Yeah.
song.
Yeah.
It's just all I hear is that frequency. I can be just driving, and all of a sudden I'll just hear a song playing, like a choir or all kinds of crazy things. Just, you just lay there kind of going, just, I try to meditate. It's just like all of a sudden there's all this music and stuff. It's just, it's a very
Yeah.
interesting time.
It is, to say the least.
Yes. Yes.
True.
So we had a gentleman, I don't know if you ever interviewed Dan Shaw, the Vortex detective.
I have not, but he sounds
I'm going to
interesting.
connect you because
Okay.
I'm going to. Yes, you know what? He was on. I believe it was last week, and he maps vortexes and portals, and he's been on a lot of interesting TV shows, and he's brilliant in his research, in vortexes and ley lines and things like that. And because of what you do, I think you would do really well to have this connection. And that just sort of came at me, and I'm just delivering it. So I'm going to.
I'm feeling a yes with that.
Okay.
We need to connect. So
okay.
There are no coincidences, right?
No, only synchronicities. Exactly. So now we're getting into. I mean, we've covered Mothman, which is a real big one. We've covered Thunderbird, which is another big one. We've covered these water, Loch Ness Monster. But when you say that there's never a body, you're not wrong on that. Yet you've sent pictures that look like they could be a body. Like when you're looking at these pterosaurs and such. Like, how about I'll just pop a couple up? And
there's a couple of old pictures from old newspapers that I sent. That
I'm going to send. Yes, I'm going to put them up so we can definitely pay them. Okay, there.
Okay, so this particular one, there was an original of this, and then there was a movie made about this creature, and then they faked a picture just like it.
Right.
So I don't know if this is the original picture or the fake picture.
Right.
Because there are so many of them floating around the internet, who knows?
Right.
But supposedly this really happened where during the Civil War, they took down this giant creature that looks like a pterodactyl.
That's just crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's real, it's really crazy.
Yeah.
And
then there's another old one too that
grab it.
And nobody knows the source of that. But there were some stories in my book about some older sightings. One of them was in Texas, and supposedly 2 or 3 cowboys were out, and this creature came out, and they shot it and killed it. And then it was too big to carry or to haul. So they told everybody about it in the town, and they put it in the tombstone epitaph. Oh, it's at Arizona. And so I found the article on that, and I put part of it in the book. Right. But they evidently really convinced some people that they had seen a pterodactyl or some type of giant flying creature.
Well, I mean, I'm just trying. I'm just bringing things up here.
That's okay. Just bring anything up and.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
I
will. I just wanted to. There's still all in my files, so I'm just bringing them up here. Otherwise, everything just sort of ends up all over the place. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, that's the very old photo. It's poor quality, but that's an awful big bird.
It's a very big bird.
So that's.
But it almost looks like it has the the head of a condor, but yet it's a lot bigger than a condor.
It is.
They have that crazy long beak and that big, that big lump on the neck.
Yeah. Now there was a big bird, probably that big, at one point, but it supposedly went extinct a long time ago.
Right.
And there's a museum that has it. It's called Argentinivus magnificens, and it looks just like that.
Right.
And this is a display from the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles.
Bring it back up
I don't know if that display is still up there, but it was at one time.
Right.
So the wingspan measured nearly 23 feet from tip to tip.
Wow. That's a big bird. That's a really big bird. I mean, I think aside from, ostrich and condors, vultures, I mean, they have the albatross. That's probably one of the biggest known flying birds.
Yeah.
At least right now, okay, so let me.
Yeah, there are some big ones, but as far there aren't any. The biggest birds that are native to Missouri are eagles.
Right.
And so nothing that has been reported to me that's a gigantic bird is the size of an eagle. It's much bigger.
Yes.
They're all much bigger.
Yes,
or tiny, like fairies.
Right.
So and I put fairies in the book because they are winged cryptids.
They are.
They're not humans, although most of them look like humans. But in one case in Oklahoma, there are what this couple calls, they call them a different name. Oh, there's a picture of, again, I was sitting in my hot tub and I was thinking about finishing the book and I was almost done with it. And I was just thinking, I wonder if these creatures come in and out of portals was my question. Okay. I didn't say it out loud. I just thought it. When all of a sudden on my left side, this portal opens and it was flat and it was gold. And this fairy flew out of it, humanoid, didn't look at me, just went straight ahead and went about 10 feet away and another portal opened. There was a flash with the first one, flash with the second one. She flew into it and it closed.
There's your answer.
I just sat there.
Ask and you shall receive.
I was like, that did not just happen.
Right.
And I wasn't taking any drugs or drinking either.
Right. Everything seems to happen out in the hot tub, though. I have to say,
it's a good place
for me.
To even had Mothman come by when I was in the hot tub. I'm not going to go there anymore. I'm just going to stay out of it.
I love it.
But yeah, I mean, there was my answer.
Right.
I just thought it, and there was my answer.
So back to your story. I'm sorry. I thought maybe I was being segued.
No, I mean, that's it with the fairy.
With fairies.
With that fairy. But there was the other fairies I was talking about in Oklahoma. They call them mimics because they kind of look humanoid. Now, some of them are about 6 inches tall. Some of them are 1 inch tall. And I saw them in Oklahoma. And then the others are about 10 inches tall. And they did get some pictures of those.
Right.
They have come very close to this man and woman at separate times, showed themselves. They look a little bit like a human with a body and legs and arms, but stranger faces that are more insect-like, kind of a cross between a human and an insect.
Oh.
And that's what the mimics look like, the big ones. And but see, here we have again a UFO connection because all of these sightings of fairies started after they had seen a UFO.
Oh, well, that has a different twist.
Yeah. And not only one sighting of UFO, multiple sightings.
Right. I've had so many people over the years say that they have seen fairies. Someone sent me a photograph of one. To me, they just all look like little bright lights, but they're in the garden on a hot, sunny day. And they just look like little stars, it's I don't know. So I don't know enough about them to really make an assessment on the photo and the image. But I mean, I can go back into I'm a big ancient history person and folklore and I can go back and we know that they were the Fae, which again, these were beings that were eventually driven underground when, Christianity came in and tried to just eliminate paganism and druidism. And eventually these beings just didn't want to deal with humans. So the story goes, but they're supposed to be pretty aggressive. I mean, they're not really, not that these, insected looking sort of beings, and some of them look kind of cutesy.
Yeah. Oh, I saw when I was 10 years old, I saw 2 fairies come into my bedroom One went over to my sister and one went over to me, and they just look like little human girls.
Right, see?
Yeah.
Little cutesy. Tinkerbell's cute too, but she has a temper.
Oh,
So,
right.
I mean, technically speaking, but yeah, but if you're getting into the Fae, I wonder if the same thing applies because they can be very aggressive.
Well, once again, I think they're coming in and out of portals,
Yes.
because
Yes.
it's not impossible to find a body of a fairy. It has been done.
Mhm.
I know a man in California that found 1-inch fairy bones between rocks, and that's
Oh,
how they buried them. They would
interesting.
put them in rocks that had a little indentation, and
Mhm.
then other fairies came around when he was looking at one. When he found one, other fairies came around and buzzed him, and they were very aggressive. He thought they were flies at first. They were hitting him in his head
Oh,
and in his face, and then he realized what he had in his hands, and he put it back, and they quit doing that.
mhm.
And so at some point, they became more friendly.
Right.
And so because he was respectful of that and he put it back where he found it,
Mhm.
they actually come around and visit him now. And they're very, very tiny. They're 1 inch, but he said they look like humanoids.
Right. Right. See, I think that's incredible. Well, I have a little story to share with you on what the belief was fairies. I used to do ghost tours, and one night there was this bush, this tree, but it had a history of a lot of malevolent things that would happen around it, but not far away from it was said to be a fairy tree. Didn't pay it any mind. So, this is probably about 11 o'clock at night. So it's really dark. And there's like 30 people on this tour. All of a sudden, this tree lit up like a Christmas tree, all these little balls in it. And people are swatting it. They're just like, what? It was like firefly. It's like, what is this? But it was too cold for fireflies. I mean, it was deep into the fall. Like we're getting into like maybe, Halloween, like October, the whole tree. And I'm sitting there, a tour guide, I don't have a camera. I'm like, please tell me somebody's taking pictures of this. So somebody out there has pictures of this tree that was just lit up like it had hundreds of little, like little Christmas lights, all white.
Wow. Wow, that's cool. And it was called the fairy tree.
No, the fairy tree was probably a block away. This specific tree had a history of malevolence things that would happen. People would get sick around it. People would get scratched around it. But not that fairies can't be mischievous. But
Well, that
somebody
didn't
had
sound
mentioned,
very
right?
evil. That sounded kind of
I know,
nice with the light.
I know. And someone had asked about the fairy tree, and then like within 5 minutes, this thing just went. Like it happened really fast, and we were just like,
Okay. It sounds like the fairies picked up on that question, and then
Yeah.
they demonstrated for you.
Yes. Oh,
That's cool.
it was very cool because I was just directing them back. I said, "Oh, well, it wasn't part of the tour, but they knew of this because other people had, experiences around it and taken photos of this other area." And I said, "Oh yeah, it's just a block over. I'll take you there when we leave here." And then all of a sudden, this thing lit up like, and I've never seen it do that before. I had never seen it since. And sadly, the owners of the property about 3 or 4 years later cut it down.
Oh no.
Too many people were going to it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was actually on city property, but it was right there, and they just not the first time a tree that belongs to the city goes missing.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'd imagine if the fairies, favored the tree, that the home owners would not have had a real good go of it after that. But
Yeah, they can be mischievous.
yes, well, especially if you're cutting down a tree, that I don't think that's ever a good idea. But there's some beings out there that are very protective of nature.
I worked with a woman in Ireland a few years ago who kept having stuff disappear out of her window.
Right.
When she would do her dishes, she'd put her rings and stuff up there. And one of them was her wedding ring, and she wanted it back. And she said, would you remote view this and see what's doing it? Because she thought it was an animal or something. I said,
Right.
oh, no, it's fairies. And they're attached to your family. And they said that if you will leave some milk out for them and just treat them with respect, that they'll bring your ring back. So she said, okay. So she did that. And she just meditated every night, sent a message out that she enjoyed having them there, and she would do what they wanted. She put milk out. A week later, the ring showed back up.
Wow.
She called me. Yeah.
That's impressive. I think people don't realize that we do share space with all of these beings, and
Yeah.
they're very active in our lives. Like Wayne, who was in the chat room here earlier, he used to have this thing with gremlins, and they would always mess with the tools at the mechanics shop. He used to own, a mechanics garage, and he would finally say, he goes, okay, I've just about had enough. He goes, when I get back, I'm going to lunch. This thing better be back here because I need it. And they would bring it back.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
So it was just always this level of mischief going on all the time. I said, you're pretty calm considering. He goes like, what am I going to do?
Well, I think sometimes they just want attention. They want it to be acknowledged.
Yes.
They want us to be at a level of consciousness where we can have a conversation with them.
Right.
And they get frustrated with us sometimes, and they start pulling pranks.
Oh, yes, the gremlins. Yes.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I've had people say to me, that they see like gargoyles around me. And my sister is very intuitive, but pretends she's not. Said, I had this horrific dream. I'm going, what's that? She goes, I was at your house and a gargoyle jumped on my back. It wouldn't let me in the front door. And you couldn't stop laughing. I said, oh, you have to admit, though, that would be pretty funny. I'm sorry. So were you in danger? She goes, no, I was just panicked. Okay, good. Then I'm so sorry. But I'm just having a vision because you have to know my sister. So, but I've also had people, just email me or randomly or message me and say, do you have this association with gargoyles? I'm like, I don't know. Possible. I love
because they're picking them up.
Yeah, it's interesting. But, I do think that there are a lot of beings out there. And just because you shouldn't always judge a book by its cover, I guess is the easiest way to put it, because not everything is aggressive because it may look aggressive, Wayne says they ended up being quite helpful. But when I couldn't find something, I would ask them to locate it. And a few minutes later, I'd find an item in the most obvious place where it wasn't before.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, respect.
They will, leprechauns, fairies, gremlins, they will do that.
Right.
Ghosts will too.
Yes.
They like to play tricks.
Oh yes, we've had them. We had ghosts in the house that would drop coins. They would never do it for us. But we had a film crew there one time, and they caught coins dropping from the ceiling. And we're just like, wait a minute.
That happened to me. That you're the only other person I know that's happened to. But the reason it happened to me is because the house where Ginger Rogers was born came up for sale here in Independence a few years ago.
Oh.
And my daughter came down the steps and told me about it because I had just told her I was getting ready to buy another house because we have a real estate investment business too.
Right.
And she says, you have to buy this house. I said, what? She goes, it's the Ginger Rogers house. So we're standing there talking. My husband was out of town at the time.
Right.
And I knew this, I would have to act fast. So I'm talking to her, should I do this or should I not? And then all of a sudden I said, I wonder if Ginger Rogers would want me to buy her house because, obviously I'm speaking to the dead, right?
Right.
When these pennies started falling down from nowhere, one fell on my daughter's foot, one fell on my desk, one fell on a table, and another one fell somewhere else.
And he's from heaven.
Okay, that's our answer.
Did you buy the house?
Yeah, that was Ginger Rogers. And oddly, Well, I had to sell the house. I turned it into a museum, and then I had to sell it because during
Yeah.
COVID.
Right. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Ginger has hung around, and now she's in my office. So she's
Well,
here
she
with
likes
me.
you, Margie. What's not to
Yeah,
like?
every once in a while, I find a penny on the floor or somewhere where there wasn't anything there before.
I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it's cool.
I love it. I think that's wonderful. No, that we would never have that. They just did it specifically with this film crew, and
Wow.
there must have been something about one of the members of the crew that the house really liked. You know, it wasn't like stuck spirits. Everybody was there in visitation. You know, it was a very interesting place, but it had a portal and extraterrestrials as well as spirits. As you know, I always say the drive-bys would kind of shoot through from other times, and then they'd be gone. And you know, eventually we sold it. And when we moved, I remember saying, "Did you hear that?" And he's like, "What? What?" I'm going, "Absolutely freaking nothing." That's what I'm talking about. I have peace finally. And then all the frequency and the music started. So it's just a different level now. But just, you know, and ET still that doesn't change in my life. But that's okay. You know.
Sounds like you and I have a lot in common, Michelle.
I think so. When you were recounting your childhood story, I'm going, wait a minute.
Little bit of everything.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I love how it all connects. I have to say the one being that I'm not fond of, really, and are gnomes. Gnomes are a thing for me because I saw this video from Argentina at one time, and this gnome is doing this dance and he's sidestepping across the street. And I was like,
They're creepy. Every story I've ever heard about
Thank
gnomes is
you.
creepy.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
I want nothing to do with them.
see, thank you, Margie. We really are kindred spirits because I am not a fan of said gnomes either. And everybody thinks it's funny to play with me with the gnomes. And I'm just not a fan.
Yeah. Well, maybe they're not all bad, but there are some bad ones.
Right? I find them to be very mischievous. So would you say they are a terrestrial or interdimensional being, or would you say that they are very rooted to the planet?
No, I'd say they're interdimensional
as
because
well.
The witnesses that have told me about their sightings involve where did it go, where did it come from,
right?
Why did it just disappear in front of my eyes?
Right.
In one case, a friend of mine who's an investigator, she grew up with a gnome on her property, and it kept looking at her from behind a shed and then would hide, and then it would run and chase her, and she was scared to death of it. Just scared to death, and no one else could see it.
Oh,
but her brother told her years later that he saw it too, but he didn't tell her because he didn't want her to be scared.
Okay, yeah, see,
Yeah.
They're just like little tricksters, and they're just, yeah. See, that would bother me. If you knew there's a damn gnome in my house, I would want to know about it because I'm just, you know, when I was in Romania, I've been very fortunate to travel, you know, to many different parts of the world, and I love culture, and I love everything about the places I go to. And this specific year, gnomes were the thing. There were gnomes freaking everywhere, Margie. Everywhere I turned, there were dang gnomes everywhere. So, you know, I come out there, you would stay in villas or things like that. Like then, you know, some of the cities had the newer, the bigger hotels, but for the most part, we would stay in villas. And my friends, my team, all put a bunch of gnomes outside my front door as I went out. I was going to have, you know, I'm just going to have a nice little latte thingy that they had there, the Romanian style. I'm going to go out onto the terrace and I'm going to sit there and I'm going to enjoy this and look outside at the Carpathians, because anyone who knows me knows I love mountains. Gnomes. Gnome statues everywhere.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I know. It's
No.
like a freaking nightmare. But anyway, but aside from that, is there anything else you want to add about the book? Is there any, did we leave anything out? I think we got the fairies and Mothman.
Oh gosh. Well, there's a lot.
Though. Sorry.
you have
You
another
talk.
picture?
I'm just going to put this up for you because you sent it.
There's a lot in here going way back in history. Even Lewis and Clark ran across a group of Native Americans that had a story about a very large creature that sounds like a pterodactyl.
Oh,
Yeah, this is the Ohio Bridge. You can see this.
I'm trying to find it.
I think this was taken in about 2003 by a witness, but I couldn't find out much about it. These pictures were on the internet, and again, they don't give you any information, but this thing was on the bridge, and then there's another picture of it flying off.
That's the one I think I've seen. The
Okay.
one where it was flying. But this is
Yeah.
interesting because you could see the wings.
Yeah, you could see a humanoid with wings.
Yes.
It's very clear what it is, and several people saw it. Somebody snapped a picture or a couple of pictures. They watched it sit there for a while and then fly off, and they got another picture of it flying. And of course, the city claims it's something mundane,
Of course, yes.
Once again, we have a bridge with a Mothman.
Right.
So what is the connection?
Yes, exactly, with the bridges. That's interesting.
And
so
water.
You mentioned you have stories that go way back.
Go way back,
Yes.
to the 1600s, late 1600s.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm sorry, it wasn't Lewis and Clark. It was Marquette and Joliet.
Okay.
In 1673, Alton, Illinois. And still to this day, and the story is, long story short, there was a painting of a giant bird with a long tail that looked really creepy on the side of these rocks, huge painting, and the Native Americans were shooting at it with guns. And he asked why, and they said the story is that they called this creature the Piasaw, which means bird that devours man.
Wow.
And at some time before they arrived, the Piasaw kept grabbing the Native Americans and taking them back to its lair, which is way up on the cliff in a cave, and ate them. And so the chief had a vision one time about how to get rid of it. And so he was the bait, and he stood out in a field, but he had all of his warriors hidden around him in a circle with poison arrows. And so when the thing came down to grab him, they shot it before he got the chief and killed it. Well, when these two gentlemen, Marquette and Joliet, they took them up to the cave where the Piasaw had been camping out, and they found piles of human bones.
Wow.
Piles of bones.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, that is one of the older recorded sightings, and it may be the first recorded sighting in modern times, at any rate.
Right.
1600s. Right. But there are stories going back to wars in France where a Mothman was seen prior to a battle that they lost. It was a precursor to doom, and it was known then as a precursor to doom.
Right.
There's something happening.
Right.
There's just a little bit of everything in here.
And
I'm working on a second book because now I have received so many more sighting reports, and I'm collecting them. I've got the winged cryptids Google map on my website.
Right.
And so I'm collecting sightings for that.
I was perusing it. Yeah, it was great. It's really well done, Margie. It's great.
It's interesting. So I've got a lot more. So I'm probably going to do a second edition that's as big as the first one.
Oh, I would think so, because I mean, especially now, if you have all these portals opening up and things are coming through, I know as remote viewers as well, there's a lot of things you see, and dragons for me was one.
Oh gosh. Okay.
I love dragons. I do. And,
Dragons just came into my life about 6 months ago.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you know where they like to fly?
Where they like to fly?
Over the Adirondacks.
Oh, okay.
Yep, they do.
Okay.
Definitely. But I mean, tales go back all the way to it was Italy. We're going back into the 1500s, where there was a dragon, and they claim the church there claims that they actually have a dragon rib in the church, and it goes back to the 1500s, where you had two towns that were warring, and there was a dragon in the middle, and they agreed to get together, and they apparently took this thing down, and you can visit this rib. If it's a rib, who knows? But it's a piece of folklore that goes back. But yeah, I mean, there's people spot these things. They come in, they come out.
Oh, I agree 100%. I totally believe they're real. Yeah, and they're interdimensional.
That's it. Don't anybody just ruin this for us.
No, don't.
We love dragons. Yeah.
The thing is, well, I said they start coming in 6 months for me. The reason is because I was doing readings for people, and all of a sudden I'm seeing dragons in their energy field. I'd be like, okay, do you know you've got a dragon? And they'll say, oh, yes, it's white. And it was white.
Yeah.
Or something like that, or multicolored.
Yes.
I'm like, okay, so I had to remote view. I had to see what that was all about. And the dragon energy is protective energy.
Yes.
They come in to protect. That's what they told me. And so now I've got one myself, which I didn't have before. So it's something new.
But it's wonderful. And they're also the keepers of knowledge, which is amazing as well, because they pass that on to you at the same time, And I agree with Kathy. I mean, they are guides in so many ways, if you don't get all wigged out with them. Some people do. Like, they don't want to think of these type of beings. I think it just comes down to conditioning. You're conditioned to think that anything serpent-like is it's evil, but it's knowledge. It's all knowledge.
Yeah, I never really thought about them before I started seeing them in people's energy fields. I thought, what is this all about?
Right.
Because I'm not feeling any negative energy from them at all.
Right.
It's positive.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. You can feel an intelligence there.
They're pretty incredible. I think if you can, like I say, if you can get past just looking at them, I find people on an average like dragons. There's just something about something that looks so mystical and magical that it's easy to embrace it. Whereas if some big reptilian shows up in front of you, you're going to kind of go, yeah, no, it's not the same.
Oh, no, that's not the
big
same at all.
draconian or something,
No.
Yeah.
No. I've had some dealings with them as well, and I don't like them.
See, I feel the same way. Yet there are some people who have said they've had amazing experiences with reptilians.
That is true.
But
with my experiences, it hasn't been good.
Okay.
And I prefer to stay away from them and not call them in.
Yes.
So
there's 50-50 when it comes to them. The same as a mantis. It's 50-50. Some people have great mantis experiences. Other people no, it's horrific.
I am one that has had really good experiences with a mantis. I have a mantis as a guide. He's been with me for multiple lifetimes.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. So why do you think people are having terrible experiences with them? Do you think it's us, the way we react to them?
I can't. Well, here's one thing that I've noticed in paranormal investigations.
Right.
And that is when there's a negative energy in a house, there's usually a negative person in the house.
Right.
So they're calling that energy in, even if they say they don't want that, but that's what they are. And so therefore it's attracted to them.
Right.
Same thing could be happening with extraterrestrials or interdimensional beings as well. The person would attract that energy.
Right.
So
see, it's interesting when you put it like that, because a lot of people will tell you that, no, I'm like this because of that energy. But you see, it's a match.
It's the opposite.
It's a frequency if your frequency is of a certain way and you put that out, another frequency or
Yep.
energy that comes in to match you will connect with you, and it's not always in a good way.
Yep. I agree 100%.
Right. See, people, I always say, I'm always posting, positive vibes, raise those vibrations, keep going, frequency. It really is a thing. I think, they think you're just kind of being witchy woo woo, but no, it's everything. Everything is vibration frequency, including the
I'm
matrix.
constantly repeating that all the time. It's almost like you're my twin.
Maybe I am. This is in there.
Twin flame or so. I don't know. I don't think that's right, but whatever it is.
I know. I think, you know what? I think we are in a really great time. I think we have great things to look forward to. And, CERN isn't a great thing, in my opinion. It creates a lot of instability. However, energy wise, energy speaking, I don't want to talk about the components of it, what it does, but energy speaking, for people who are really intuitive and people who are very connected, it throws you off balance. It just creates things that are not necessarily natural. You have natural vortexes, you have natural portals. We ourselves are natural portals, and we can create portals, but there are tears within the atmosphere, within our dimensions, that are caused through bombs, that are caused through weapons, and
especially the nuclear. They do.
yes,
They tear a rift between dimensions, and they affect what we do with that affects other worlds, and
yes,
it's not good. The
yeah.
ETs are not happy with that.
No, I
but I
agree.
think that the CERN, I think we're dealing with things we're not ready for as
Right.
humans.
Right.
It's way above our capacity to understand how everything works. No matter
Right.
how smart these guys think they are, they're messing with Mother Nature.
Yes. But it's like that in pretty much so many different aspects of our lives, of this planet. We don't cherish it. I mean, William Shatner, put out a beautiful message when he went out into space, and he goes, I waited my whole life to really get there. And then when I look down at the planet, he goes, it brought tears to my eyes, because I realized that we are destroying the one thing that feels like home by looking elsewhere. He goes, I looked to the stars, but I didn't see anything there. It didn't feel like home. And I thought, you know what? That was really profound, the way he worded everything.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, my God, like, that's pretty deep coming from you, Captain Kirk. That was awesome. but but it was. So I don't know. It's a great time to be alive. I think we have to keep your eyes peeled, because I think portals are literally everywhere now, whether you like it or not. And you're not always going to get something, like all buttercuppy coming out. Sometimes you're going to get things that are maybe not so great. Like the Mothman thing wigs me out. I won't lie.
It does me too. And I would just as soon not have it
Crap
be
on the top of your
interested in
car.
me at all.
Yeah, that would be good.
But it occasionally appears and it does things, and it's weird. And that's one thing I wish I hadn't investigated.
Yes,
actually.
the pooping on the top of the car is not a good thing for me. Not if you got a convertible.
I'm glad it wasn't my car.
Right. I know.
But because of me investigating Tony, now, I mean, I have seen shadows of it. I've seen shadows driving down the highway right over the car, and then the car, my brand new car at the time, SUV Santa Fe, started shaking uncontrollably.
Okay, see.
While this shadow of a gigantic Mothman is on the highway overhead, taking up the whole highway, was how big the shadow was. And I had an investigator with me, and she also has had experiences with Mothman.
Do you
that's
think
too
you
much
called
big
it
of a
onto you?
coincidence.
Investigating it. Do you think it reminds me of the movie, The Mothman Prophecies, how him constantly going over there and talking to people, and all of a sudden it was part of his life. Do you
Yes.
think by investigating This being that now it's
Yes.
a part of your life?
Yes. Unfortunately, yes. I do.
Wow. Wow. That
So
easy,
I
huh?
don't talk about it very much
Right.
because when I do, I'm likely to have either I'll have a sighting or someone will call me and say they've had a sighting.
Which brings you into it.
Uh-huh.
Right. Right. So like it or not, now you've got this unlikely, unwelcome connection.
Yep.
Do you think you'll ever figure it out? Do you think it will let you figure it out? And
It'd be nice.
yeah. See, I was just going to ask this. Thank you, Dee. Could there be more than one? Yeah, I
Oh,
would think so. Yeah.
yeah. I'd say there's
Yeah.
colonies of them. I think there's a colony
Like bats.
in Point Pleasant. There's a colony in Chicago and one in Kansas City for sure.
Wow.
Yeah. Too many sightings.
Right.
Now,
just worldwide.
I've never heard of
Worldwide.
a sighting of two at once,
Right.
but there's just too many of them to be all the same one.
Right. Do you think if they're similar to, let's say moth, but if they've got bat wings, that sort of thing, or there are beings out there that have them, do you think they work with sonar the same? So again, it's this frequency thing that can affect humans as well.
Who knows? It could be. Now, I haven't had anybody say they've had any physical effects except some people have been disoriented.
Right.
And some, I think in the Point Pleasant, have felt nauseous when it was
It's just like the Bigfoot thing.
Kind of like the Bigfoot, only not as dramatic.
Right.
But there was another very strange case where a Mothman was inside a person's house a couple years ago. This woman called me, and oddly from Sugar Creek again, where all this weird stuff happens, near the Missouri River.
Right.
Okay. So this location was maybe a couple of miles from that bridge I had mentioned earlier.
Right.
But she didn't know anything about that or any of the past stuff.
Right.
And she said, I saw something weird in my trees outside my house, and it's freaking me out. Can you remote view it and see what it is? And sure enough, it's a Mothman. She was seeing it crouched in the tree for days on end, every night. So I'm looking at the outside, okay? I didn't see anything, but I was drawn to look inside her house. So I said, may I look inside your house? So I went through the front door, and to my right was a staircase going upstairs. And then turned right again, went down the hall to her bedroom that was at the very end of the hall, and went through that door. And then to my left immediately was a closet. I was drawn to look in the closet, and there is a Mothman standing in the back of the closet asleep. Now, I was not expecting to see that.
Did not see that coming. No.
No, I didn't either. And I'm remote viewing, right? I'm not there in person. Right. I was remote viewing. So I said, okay, when you go into your house, is the staircase to the right? She goes, yeah. I said, and then when you go upstairs, your room's at the end of the hall. Yes. I said, when you open the door, do you see a set of 3 windows on the opposite side of your room? She goes, how are you doing this? I said, I'm a remote viewer. This is what I do. It's okay. Right. Just relax. I said, is there anything about that closet that you want to tell me about? That's all I said.
She goes, Mothman in it?
She said, the Mothman is in there.
Oh my God.
First time I ever heard anybody say anything like that.
That one is on the inside. Like how to get in there.
Well, obviously it's interdimensional. It can go through walls.
So she had a portal in the house, obviously. See? That's a problem.
It's a problem when you have portals. Yes, you might have things you don't want.
Exactly.
And it's sleeping inside the house during the day, and then at night it goes outside in the yard, in the trees.
Okay, see, that means like it's there all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, no. No, I would not be good with that at all. I'm pretty easygoing with interdimensional beings. Like I don't freak out, things like that. In fact, people look at me and go, "You're either really stupid or you're really brave." I'm like, I opt for the first one
Yeah.
because I'm the one that'll jump in with both feet and then think about it later. But that would be a little much for me because
Yeah.
you have your sanctuary.
I'd be
Right?
moving because obviously the Mothman's not leaving, and there's a
No.
portal there.
Yeah.
And I told her that. I said,
Yes.
"Yeah, you should move." So
Wow.
crazy.
It's almost like those people in California who live over the tunnels where there's reptilians who just show up coming up through their floors.
Uh-huh.
One woman came home and there was a big, like in her closet, again, the floor was torn up. And
Wow.
when she looked down, there was a reptilian being in there.
Oh my
And
God.
apparently this was mapped in the 70s by a geologist or some scientist, and they mapped this whole tunnel system under LA.
Okay, you just gave me something else to look into because I did not know that.
Look into that because I remember seeing this, and then I recently it came up again, an article, but the part about where it was mapped. But I remember seeing the story of this woman in the first place, going, okay, that's trippy. And now it came up again recently in the last 30 to 45 days, I swear, this article came up again about how it had been mapped and how people there's a couple different articles floating around out there where they were coming up. Now you have to start getting into subterranean stuff,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I've known for years that the reptilians live underground and live in the cave systems. And they have certain areas where they're supposed to not cross. You can go in so deep, and then you're not supposed to go beyond that because that's their area.
Malta has that, and the whole classroom disappeared in their teacher, and they actually went into the cave system and cordoned it off. You're not allowed there anymore. They can never find them again.
Oh, wow.
I'll
But
send you stuff.
I think the reptilians are physical beings wanting to be in our 3D world.
Yes.
And they may be able to travel through portals and things like that, but they're more of a physical being than anything else.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. It's trippy for sure.
Although they can, I saw one walk out of a person one time and then go back into them, possession.
That does not surprise me. Oh my God, all these stories you hear, there's something to it. For every conspiracy theory or every story you hear, there's a little grain of something in there that requires research because the story came from somewhere based on something, right? Okay, this is unfortunately darn it, we're towards the end of the show. This is the part where you tell everybody what's going on, promote yourself, the websites, everything.
Okay. Just go to margiekay.com, margiekay.com.
Yes, right.
And links to everything are there, links to my show. I do workshops, I do readings, I do speaking engagements all over. I've got some big trips coming up, some big speaking engagements going to be at the Journey to Truth Conference in Illinois next month. Going to be on the to cruise in September. That's Contact at Sea Cruise.
Nice.
Some big names on that. I'm going to be speaking there. Lots of fun. And of course, my conference, XCon, which is put on by the UNX Network, that is in Springfield in October 11th through 13th.
Very nice.
And all the information about that. And then the UNX Network is at unxnetwork.com. That's UNX Network. And we've got 30 shows now on the X, and we just hit our 30th magazine issue this month.
Congratulations.
So I'm really proud of that. Got a great team of people. My main producer is Race Hobbs, and my assistant is Violet Wisdom. And the guests, the hosts are fantastic, and things have been going great. We've been going full steam for a little over 2 years now, and
Excellent.
I think we've accomplished a lot in that time.
Congratulations. It is a big thing. It is a big thing to do it. I stepped out of TV, went right and came into and a radio station until lockdown, and then decided, syndicated and now out in New Orleans. And I thoroughly enjoy it. It's hard
Yeah.
though to make that transition. People think radio is easy. It's not very easy, is it? It's
Oh,
just,
oh no. No,
Yeah.
there's nothing easy to it.
Yeah.
And managing one show a week is hard enough, but
Yeah.
when there are 30 shows a week, it's
Yeah.
it's a project.
I manage this one, and we're pretty close as well. So I completely sympathize with you. It's definitely a lot of work, dealing with a lot of egos and a lot of different areas of expertise. And
Yeah,
so it is.
but it's
But
important to get the messages out. That's
Yeah.
I'm doing what you're doing,
Yes.
just letting people know
Yes.
that there's a
Exactly.
lot out there to be investigated.
And I love that. And I'm
Yeah.
glad you're doing it, because you're doing like phenomenal work. Check out the website. Go to margiekay.com. You'll be on there for a while. Check out the map. The map is great. I love it. Every little pin has a story. It's great. So
And if anybody does have a story, let me know. I would love to add it to the map.
excellent. Excellent. And I will connect you up with Dan Shaw. I will send you his email. I'll let him know that I'm going to do that. And I know you will love him. He's just brilliant. Brilliant.
Okay. Sounds great.
And
Sounds
I'll
great.
be in touch with you as well, because I'd love to do this again with one of your other books. And it was so nice spending the evening with you.
Well, you too, Michelle. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care, Margie. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, guys, we've come to the end of another fantastic segment. Margie, isn't she wonderful? Didn't I promise you guys she was going to be fantastic? Yes, there she is. Fantastic. So informative. The whole Mothman thing, yeah, that was a bit much, but see, just answers so many questions. But anyway, big thank you to Margie Kay for joining me this evening. And thanks to all of you guys in chat. You guys always make it that much more fun. You really do. Thank you for all of your questions and your comments. And I try to put them up, but sometimes we just move at a bit of a higher speed, and you bounce around a little bit. So remember, go to Roku. Check out Roku for archives as well. Joe's pretty good at keeping them up. Naughty Joe. Got to get him a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. That's okay. He's here, so I'm just teasing him. Tomorrow night, Preston Dennett. Yes, we love Preston. Woo, Preston. Preston's coming back. Preston's like family. So he's coming back to discuss his newest book, Not From Around Here, Volume 5. And he always saves us some special little tidbits. But we'll have to definitely get your questions ready, because he's always got amazing stories. So, guys, big thank you to Folgers Coffee for sponsoring tonight's show. Big thank you to Justin Snicker, aka Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon. Big thank you to Steve McGinnis. Big thank you to the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3, 107.7 FM, home of course, the Outer Realm. So we will see you guys tomorrow night. And like I said, get those questions ready. It's going to be a fun show. Good night.